I would wager and argue that most people don't actually know what coaching really is. I think when people think about coaching, they think that it's advice giving. And so there's some common distinctions between coaching, therapy, consultants, and mentors.
My name's Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create lives of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development and entrepreneurship. Today, we've got an amazing guest, my good friend, Alex Lee, who has spent time at all of the tech sales titans, or at least a lot of them. He's worked at IBM. He's worked at Rackspace, Google Cloud, and MongoDB. Talk about a great pedigree. I'm a poet, I didn't even know it. We're going to talk about his journey into tech sales and his experience at these companies, his lessons learned, and his journey taking a leap of faith into entrepreneurship and going all in on himself. Make sure to take notes in this conversation and share the conversation with more people who could benefit from the message. With that, let's dive into it. Alex, thanks for being here, man. So good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I have to say, I saw it was an AMG. It was a Mercedes. And I was like, is that Alex?
Yep.
And it was. And then you told me that, Chris, I put $100K down cash on this used AMG. Like, I guess you make a lot of money in tech sales, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why most people get into sales, because it's extremely lucrative. And yeah, I think if you do the right things, find content like yours, apply yourself every day, really push yourself out of your comfort zone, then yeah, tech sales it has a high ceiling from a financial standpoint for sure.
And that's the Trojan horse to get a lot of people interested, but the true personal growth upside is pretty incredible. And I feel like in our conversation before this conversation, you mentioned that was a driver for you to get into tech sales. So walk us through your journey into tech sales and what your initial motivations were.
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way. So finance has had some to do with it, but just to take a step back. So when I take a look at my background, there was a lot of, let's say, obstacles and things I had to kind of work through, and it kind of brought me to a point in life where I just, became a student of wanting to grow and constantly just learn more on what's out there. And so when I was in college, my senior year, I was taking a sales elective class, and the professor was just showing me like everything there was about the career, like all the freedom you have, like, unlimited upside, like just a lot of really cool things. And that hit me at a point in my life where I was like, you know what? Like, one of the biggest priorities in my life is growth. And low key, I wanted to find a career that was going to scare the shit out of me and really challenge me every single day. But then on the flip side, I was listening to my professor talk about the life of a salesperson. And I was like, wow, this sounds like it could be really, really fun if I learn how to get good at this. And so I didn't look at sales as a way to make money. I actually looked at sales as a great way to force me to kind of burn the bridges and enter a career that was going to challenge me pretty much every single day. And yeah, that's how I got into sales.
Isn't it interesting that the guy who entered into sales not to make money, but for meaning, for growth, ends up dropping $100K cash for an AMG, and the money came, right? So I feel like when you find something that can stretch you, where you can sustain your motivation, you feel fulfilled, if you get good at what you do, the money can follow, right? So I love your motivation to get in and really challenge yourself to grow. Clearly, you continue to be a student of growth. Now, when you started out, were you banging the phones as an SDR? I'm going to assume you started as an SDR, but was that the case?
Yeah, so I've always been a proponent of, if you're going to do something, do it right. Meaning, when I first got into sales, I knew right off the bat, the biggest priority for me was making sure I got trained right, making sure that I built a really strong foundation and just added on top of that. And so my first job out of college was at a company called Memory Blue. And they're essentially a outsourced lead gen company. So, tech companies will hire them to bash the phones and get leads. And I specifically picked that company because the co-founders at the time, when we're interviewing, were really stressing how much they train their salespeople to, bash the phones, how to set up campaigns, how to create scripts, all the basic one-on-ones. And so that's pretty much how my entire sales career has grown, where I'll take a look at what's the next step that I need to learn in my life to really become really indispensable to the industry. And so to answer your question, I did start off as most sellers should, with humble beginnings, bashing the phones, earning your stripes, and then, one step after another, you just kind of figure out what's the next path in my career that I want to move towards.
Tell us the reality, especially for the aspiring tech sellers trying to break in for the first time, of the SDR role when you're, as we say, bashing or banging the phones, right? What is the job actually like, warts and all?
What is the job actually like? Well, that's a great question, man.
And even how did you feel when you were making your first cold calls? Like, let's be real, I was a little bit terrified. At the time, I don't drink anymore, but I remember on a Friday, I got a little tipsy with the team and calling executives, And so I'm just curious to get your, it was a long time ago, by the way. You've had a long career, so.
Well, okay, so how candid should we be, right? Because candidly...
let's be candid, because... You're the real deal, man. Like, you've been at the top companies, and I want to give folks out there a dose of reality, because it's a very hard role, right? So let's just, whatever comes up for you, but be real.
I mean, candidly, when I first started, scared shitless. I still remember to this day my very first cold call, and I almost puked. Like, I picked up the phone. I was like, I forgot my scripts. I just blacked out. The dude eventually hung up on me, so I didn't even have a full conversation. And afterwards, I was just like, damn, dude, I need to throw up right now. So I was scared shitless. But
that is an amazing story, how real that is, and it's so relatable, man. I remember in my Oracle training, even in the mock cold calls, which we did with trainers, people, all of a sudden, their brain went out the window, and they couldn't have cohesive, they got hijacked emotionally, and it happened to me. So what a story. Yeah.
And there's so many great lessons you can take from the journey of being an SDR and making it up the sales ladder. I think one of the big ones that I always share with young sellers when they're getting into it is, so many times people are trying to get rid of that anxiety, right? Like, a bunch of young sellers will always come to me and say, like, hey, Alex, how do I not get nervous before a call, or how do I get rid of this? And the thing I always try to tell them is, you don't get rid of it. Just like if you ask a motivational speaker that's been doing that for 20 years, like, hey, do you still feel nervous? They still feel nervous. What is important is you learn to develop a relationship with those uncomfortable emotions. And it's more about learning how to just let that sit inside of you and still decide to carry forward. So I think that was probably one of my biggest takeaways from the, learning how to cold call and stuff.
What a great lesson. Someone just recently booked time with me. They started a job at Oracle, and they brought up the same thing, like, oh, how do I not get nervous? That is a powerful paradigm shift and insight you just shared that could serve a lot of people out there in the audience. And it's no surprise now that you are coaching people to expand who they are, launch their entrepreneurial careers, which, the quick teaser on what we're going to get to at the end of this conversation in terms of where you're at now and how you've even coached me. So right there, that was a powerful moment. So
right on, man.
Let's talk about the shift. Was IBM next? Or after Memory Blue?
Yeah.
Okay, because IBM is a powerhouse name, and there's even a guy, Matt McNamara. I've never met him, but shout out to Matt. He's got like 20,000 subscribers. He's still at IBM, and that's a big-time company. It makes me think of Oracle, where I worked, and Dell, with some of the greatest training and brand recognition in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
Tell us about your experience and a couple nuggets and lessons learned from IBM.
Yeah, so, I'm going to try to not, go into too many details, because with every company we could have a whole podcast
You're
with
right.
each company, right, of like all the lessons learned. But yeah, IBM was, and again, this goes off of the foundations of training. But number one, if I'm going to be completely honest, I lucked into that role at IBM, and that 100% changed the trajectory of my entire career. And I say I lucked into it because I got into it through the people that I know. And so, not to go too much into the cliche of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, but right there at the start of my career, essentially, my network is what helped me get into IBM. And a quick note on networking, right, is I feel like a lot of young individuals, when they look at networking, it's like, how do I collect as many business cards and use this one day when I want to, or when I need something. But I think true networking, and I think you're a perfect example of this, is networking is the art of finding and meeting as many people as you can and figure out how can I give as much value as I can. And if you just live your life with that mindset, then all these relationships always, blossom into something fruitful in the future. And the person that got me to IBM was exactly that. It was someone that I knew in college. We had a really great relationship. And next thing you know, that's how I got in. So that's a quick lesson on networking.
What a great lesson, by the way. Talk about the most strategic, powerful, long-term opportunity generating asset, and not just professionally, but personally, but you hit the nail on the head. Coming from a place of contributing. It's not just what can I get? What a powerful insight. So continue on that. I'm so glad you called that out.
And to that point, and you probably have experiences as well, right? But it's what gives life that depth. The relationships, like that's what it's all about. It's not the money or the the career jump or whatever. It's the people we know, and that's what makes life enjoyable. So
I have to chime in.
Yeah,
I got into tech sales for two reasons. I love people and I wanted to be great. So the great part is, like you said, personal growth, and I freaking love people, and you get paid to build relationships. So you're just reminding me, and I'm even getting chills on why I entered into this path and why it's actually a meaningful path for the people who value those types of things.
Yeah, and I'm smirking a little right now because when you said that, my coaching instinct just jumped in, and I almost asked you like, oh, well, why did you want to be great?
Yeah. And maybe you could coach me later.
Yeah,
or in a future
absolutely.
podcast, we could do that would be interesting, a live coaching session.
That would be
so
cool.
That's a good point, but we're going to put a pin in that.
Sure.
That's powerful. Let's keep going though on, you got into IBM through your network, and let's be real, the most successful people have all had luck in their life that led to their breakthrough success, but their preparation was prepared to capitalize on it. So back to the IBM journey.
Yeah, so I think my two main takeaways with IBM was like, number one, IBM, just like Oracle and Xerox and all these companies, right, had legendary sales training. So IBM has a sales training center in Dallas, Texas. At the time, I was living in the DC area, but every new seller that they hire, they send you out to the IBM Sales School Center for one whole week out of the month for 6 months in a row. And when you're there, you're not doing any work. Your managers tell you like, don't email, don't talk to customers, shut it all off. You're there to learn how to sell. And it's probably one of the most intensive sales boot camps I've ever been through. But so, right, you're seeing a trend of invest in companies that are going to invest in you. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that IBM taught me, because they're a really old school company, was they taught me how to talk to a customer, kind of play doctor and get the pain, but then learning how to translate that pain into numbers. Because half the battle is trying to get to the pain of like, what solution are you really solving for this customer? But if you can't translate that into metrics or numbers that matter to them, then it's going to be a pretty hard upsell battle, because when you can quantify your solution to them, it just makes it way more real. And IBM did a great job training us on how to do that.
So you were basically locked away, and I'm being dramatic, where you couldn't even execute in the job. You needed to focus on your learning and development. And just want to double click on this training. You might have already said it, but how long was it? And Was there role playing involved in addition to maybe you go how did they facilitate the training?
Oh, man, that's such a good question because you're actually making me think back to it now.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, the first week we went, or the first month, I guess, was more about sales fundamentals. They have you do a lot of pre-work beforehand. So there is so there's equal parts classroom session, but then equal parts role play. But the way that they had really set it up was kind of like an MBA, where prior to every sales week, they give you a bunch of material to read through as if you're really prepping for a real sales call.
Yeah.
And it's basically like the equivalent of like a Harvard Business Review use case.
Wow.
And so you're prepping all month for this stuff, and then you go, and then they typically will have you go through a series of role plays as if you're literally doing a sales role play with the different people in the rankings of the decision making. So you might have like the people on the ground, you might have like the first line managers, then you might have the person that's actually signing the check. So they're really trying to mimic the process of you getting into a company and tackling it from every angle. And the role plays are really interesting because they always give you information that you think you need, and then there's always a curveball. Every single role play, they throw a curveball at you where they bring up something where you're like, fuck, I don't know how I'm supposed to retort to this because it wasn't in the information.
Yeah.
And those curveballs is where it really tests your ability to just stay present. Because sometimes you might rehearse too much for a role play, and then you're not being present. And I think that's a big mistake a lot of new sellers make, is they're so nervous about messing up that they forget to just put all their prep time and their notes away and just be present with the customer. And so those role plays kind of taught me that lesson the hard way, really.
Way to stretch yourself to remember the training, because even for me 10 years ago when I went through Oracle training, that's a stretch to remember it. But we had cold call role plays. We did have, sessions like going back to school on the industry and the product, but then also trained up in the Sandler sales methodology. And as you mentioned before, learning to diagnose problems like a doctor and translate it to relevant business value and solution sell. So really great call out too on the importance of going into conversations with customers and being present. That is the biggest mistake I made early in my career, is that I over-prepared because I had an analytical brain and I thought I was doing the right thing. But then I show up in a customer meeting and the conversation goes in a completely unexpected direction, and I was so caught up on having it go a certain way that it just freaked me out to have to like dance in the conversation.
Yeah.
It's more about being present and pivoting, right? So
yeah, it's like Kobe said, right? A reporter once asked Kobe, like, hey, R.I.P., by the way.
Yeah.
They asked Kobe, like, hey, do you get nervous before a game? And Kobe said, no, because I train really hard. It's what I do behind the scenes that makes me not nervous, because I know I've trained harder than anyone else. And I think it's the same concept where before you go into any customer call, you better prepare. You need to know everything about that company. You need to think about every objection or every possible angle that they might ask a question. You need to know your product inside out. But when you're with that customer, you put all the notes away and you just have that faith of like, I prepped really hard for this, so I don't need to worry. I can just be present right now.
So we're going to get to your experience at Google Cloud later, and we'll hit on Rackspace before that, but teaser on Google. But I will say, when I got into Google, I prepared my my ass off. We can cuss here. We've already been doing it. But in my final round, they put me out in the Four Seasons in Austin here, and I was very excited. But I all of a sudden got sick, and I wanted to prepare to the last second. And I freaked out because I was feeling sick and I had brain fog. And what's crazy is that I just had to surrender and trust. And I thought, I'm going to screw this all up and not get it. But what I didn't realize is it was a blessing to just like surrender and have to trust in the preparation, and it forced me to be present. So I wonder if I didn't get kind of sick, which it turns out it was just severe allergies, I think, which you have here in Austin.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what if I continued to overanalyze and over-prepare, and I would have been, even though we agree it's such a good thing, like I might have like limited myself in the conversation and not been as present. So what you're saying, and what I did in that case too, is I was able to prepare, but then let go of it and be present.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So tell us, we'll wrap up on IBM with your roles that you had there. I just want to understand, like, what roles did you play from a sales perspective, and like what did you sell, and then we'll move on to Rackspace.
Yeah, so I was working for IBM's federal cloud team. So when I first joined IBM, this was around the time where Amazon and AWS was really just breaking into the market, and they, Amazon and AWS had that weird stint of time where, like, for almost 2 years they had no competitors, and they just found this unicorn of like this business opportunity.
Unbelievable.
And all these companies were scrambling to try to get into the race. And so IBM had just acquired a company called SoftLayer. It was a really large infrastructure cloud company, I think actually based in Dallas, Texas as well.
Heard of them.
Yeah, so they had just acquired them for about like $2 billion. And they were building out a federal sales team. So I was working in Washington, D.C., and I was probably salesperson number 2 or 3 that they hired. And so I was just working with a lot of the civilian agencies as a client executive at the time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at Rackspace? I'm assuming you got in maybe the cloud world, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What led to that next move?
Yeah, so I think I got, and you're going to see a theme here, right, where, my career has been obviously a byproduct of a lot of hard work and a lot of strategy and reflection and things of that sort. But you're going to hear me say quite often that there were just a lot of things where maybe I just got lucky or fate or something.
I feel the same way.
Right. And it's not that my career has been successful just because of those things. But I think that if you're not able to also take a moment to be grateful for when those things happen, then I don't know. I think it's going to be a huge limitation. It might not be apparent on how, but I think gratitude is just a really powerful thing. And so the reason I share that is because I didn't plan on being in sales. I just happened to fall into cloud sales at the time where it was really profitable and it was like the new hot thing. It's like Gen AI now, right? And so I think about that often of like, man, I wonder what it would have been like if I got into like software sales or, mainframe sales or something. So I'm always grateful that I got into the right industry at the right time. And that led me to Rackspace because on the personal side, I was going through a few things where I just needed some change. And I was in DC and a random recruiter just hit me up around the exact same day that I was like, I need some change in my life. And she was like, how would you like to move to Austin, Texas? And this was like eight years ago. So this is before Austin, Texas was like the huge tech hub it is now. And I was like, fuck it, why not? Let's do it. And so they flew me out for an interview, fell in love with the city. And that's how I ended up at Rackspace. And there is something really special about this city. And you probably have experienced this, but 9 times out of 10, when you talk to someone and you say like, oh, what brought you to Austin? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, I needed some change in my life, or I needed like a new start or a new chapter. So it's this really cool city where everyone is here kind of trying to find themselves and just figure out like, what's the next chapter in my life? So when you have a whole city of that, it's just a great energy. So, but now I'm going on a tangent. That's how I ended up.
No, that was
Rackspace.
A really good tangent. And this might sound a little heavy, but when I arrived in Austin to start working for Google Cloud back in December 2018, practically 2019, I was getting some furniture at a store, and I heard a woman say, like, I'm looking for a fresh start. My husband passed away, and she was with her kid. But she was actually, even in spite of going through such a devastating experience, she was very hopeful. And Austin really is a place of hope and rebirth and creativity, entrepreneurship, and connection. So this is a special place, man. I'm so glad it brought us together.
100%,
I'm so glad you were. If you weren't ready for that change, and had that recruiter reach out and took that opportunity with Rackspace, we would have never met. So I feel grateful for that.
I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, with Rackspace, is there anything you'd like to share on, let's just say like maybe a lesson learned, and then we'll go to Google Cloud.
Yeah, I'd say with Rackspace, and again, this was just I think it was more of a blessing. It wasn't really a lesson learned, but something I gained from it was, number one, IBM gave me some of the best sales training. Rackspace gave me some of the best technical training. I was shocked at how well put together their sales onboarding process was. But the main benefit of Rackspace was that I was getting a bunch of inbound leads, because Rackspace just had a phenomenal sales and marketing engine. It was well polished. And for whatever reason, it was working, and we were getting a bunch of pretty qualified sales leads coming in. And so at a certain point, we're averaging like 5 to 7 sales calls a day.
What a seller's dream, by the way,
Right.
to have inbound
Right?
like that.
Yep.
Like, that's unreal.
Yep. And it was just all the at-bats. In 1 week, I probably had more calls in 1 week than, most sellers would have in a whole quarter. And when you have that many at-bats, you just tweak your game so quickly. You pick up on the subtleties. You just figure out your groove so much quicker. And that was one of the benefits. Now, I say that that's a benefit because I don't know if that's quite a lesson learned, because obviously everyone wants to aim to have.
And there's a
more
lesson
at-bats.
for all of us too. Like,
Yeah.
sales is a performance art.
That is true.
And it's helpful too for people as they navigate where they want to go to, as they like qualify companies. You can get a sense of the inbound leads. Like, obviously you shouldn't not go for a company just because they don't have inbound leads flowing like they did at Rackspace. But there is a lesson in it. There's insight in what you just shared. And it's like, I love that you brought up baseball, because I was a baseball guy. And it's like, you get at bats, you do practice swings over and over, and that's how you get really good. So you were getting all those opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I would argue that if you're not working for a company now where you have the luxury of having a bunch of leads come in, don't let that be an excuse, because even now when I'm cold calling for my business, I hit up my friends and I was like, hey, I need to practice my new script. So there's always ways to get to get that practice in. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to go to Google Cloud next. But what I noticed is at a company like Google Cloud, if you're in the SMB, small, medium business space, for example, that's a type of role within a business segment where it's more transactional, formulaic selling, and you can get more at bats versus a large enterprise territory where you have just I talked to a Google Cloud seller, because I'm still on the partner side last week, and she has 5 accounts. So there's something to be said too, regardless of whether you have inbound leads. If you're in an SMB role and you just have a bigger book of business, you can take more shots.
That's true.
So, but anything else you want to add on Rackspace? There's no need to. I just want to check, like unturning a stone. Otherwise, we'll go to Google Cloud.
Yeah, I mean, again, there were a lot of great benefits at Rackspace. I actually met some of my closest friends there. Shout out to you, Chris Mays.
Hey, another Chris.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yep.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's about it with Rackspace.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of positivity from there too. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I asked, because the friendship upside of tech sales and going to a good company like Rackspace is probably much more important than the financial upside. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk Google Cloud. Everyone wants to know how to get into Google, right? Everyone wants to know what it's like, and it's amazing achievement that you got in, right? And I'm sure based on this conversation, you would say that you were very blessed, and things, I'm not saying you'd call it luck, but you're humble about it. But let's start with what drew you to Google Cloud. Like, how did that happen? Yeah,
so once again, I mean, it sounds like my whole life is just nothing but a series of lucky coincidences. But so one thing I didn't mention at the very beginning was I mentioned that there's a lot of obstacles that I had to go through in life. And I think it was the senior year of college that I had stumbled upon a Tony Robbins book. And that was really the first time I had read a book that opened my eyes to the concept of like, oh, you can just change your circumstances if you don't like it. And because I think leading up to that, and I apologize, it was senior year of high school, not college.
Okay.
But leading up to that, I think it was just like going through life with that mindset of like, well, these are the cards that I was dealt, and I just have to deal with it. And the reason I share that is because when I read that book, it sparked a quite obsessive 20-year journey of just learning self-development. And I think it was around that time that I read the other book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And it inspired me to make a list of like, here's what I want to get accomplished in my life. And I just put there like, oh, I want to work for a cool company like Google one day. But at the time, cloud wasn't a thing. So if you wanted to work at Google, you had to be an engineer. And being a marketing major, I was kind of scared to even write that on my list because, I was like, well, I don't even believe I can ever achieve this, but fuck it, I'm going to write it either way.
Love that.
Yeah. And so fast forward when I was at Rackspace, when I found out that Rackspace was the largest MSP for Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and AWS at the time, I was like, wow, something just happened here where I could potentially work at Google one day. And I went back to my list and I was like, there it is, number 3 on that list. This is going to happen. And so then I just went through the typical process, right, of researching what's the best way to get into the company. You just find those little shortcuts and you just do it and you stack the odds in your favor. And next thing you know, I'm a Googler.
You can't say that stuff and not have me probe into it, right? That was such a good teaser. I will say you remind me of a CEO that's a mentor of mine that wrote his goals on a piece of paper that he carried around with him for years and to the point that it was crumpled. And he slowly but surely checked off all the big goals on his list. And one of those goals was being a CEO and entrepreneur. And he told me that I didn't even think it was possible, but I wrote it down. What a lesson. You didn't even know that working for Google was possible at the time, but the path revealed itself. And you had the faith to write it down. That gets me fired up, dude.
That's a great point because, as a life coach now, I work with a lot of people where we're trying to redesign their life and figure out where are they really trying to get to in life. And it's actually not too uncommon where it's to a point where that dream is so scary that sometimes they can't even say it. And I can empathize with that because at one point I was almost too scared to even write it down. And so ain't that the truth though, right? Of like just being able to say it to yourself, let alone having the balls and the courage to say it to the world, that right there is like half the battle, and it's all uphill from there.
Yeah, I'm going to be bold here. I have a vision to have 1 million subscribers and I'm a long way away, but I was at a personal growth seminar and we talked about, my investment in those seminars. And quick pause. Have you gone through some like seminars yourself on your journey?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And I remember I shared with a huge group in the seminar that I want 1 million subscribers, but the guy said, wow, you literally like my tone changed. I was scared. I was like unsure of myself. So there is something to be said for it. It is scary to even vocalize it.
Absolutely.
And here I am saying it with more confidence than before. Now I'm not in front of a huge group of people, but either way, I just wanted to hit on that point. It can be scary to even say it, but what do you think? You just almost force yourself to proclaim, to write it down, regardless of how you feel or whether you even believe in it.
Absolutely. And I think a part of that too is something that's very overlooked is the importance of having good people in your life. Because, and maybe we'll get into this in further detail, but I had been wanting to leave the corporate career for quite some time. And I always knew that I wanted to be a coach or something in that realm because I just knew I had a God-given talent to help people in a really deep and meaningful way. And this urge had been boiling to the top for about 1 or 2 years at the tail end of my career. And in parallel to that, I had started a men's group. I was mentoring a bunch of people. I was doing whatever I could to try to get that fix of like wanting to help people. And the thing that really helped was I had a friend where I just helped him with his resume. And he was like, hey, I'm gonna pay you for this. And I was like, no, like you're my friend. You don't need to. He's like, no. I'm going to pay you for this because what you just provided is really valuable. And when I heard that push notification and the Venmo came in, I was like, wow, this made that dream feel really real. And I think, I think about that of like, where would I be now if I just didn't have good people in my life to kind of call me out when I need it, right? Of like, hey, man, I see that you want to do this. Like, why don't you just do it? Like, I'm going to support you. So good people in your life is really important as well.
Yeah. And so we're going to dig into why you took the leap to go all in on coaching and what it was like and what you do. But we'll continue on finishing the tech sales journey piece, and particularly going back to Google Cloud. You mentioned like the way you spoke about it was like a boss. You're like, oh, I just need to find like, I'm putting words in your mouth, but my angle and like hacks. It sounds like you had a very efficient, strategic approach to breaking in. So walk us through your thought process.
Yeah. And so I will give you a preface, right? That I'm like a few years removed, so I'm sure things have changed in the process.
Me too. Me too.
But I do think that what I tend to focus on are truisms of like, a lot of people focus on what you should do or how you should do something, but beneath that, there's always a universal pattern of like, regardless of how you do it, these things still need to occur. So I look at those as like truisms. And so I feel confident in that what I'm going to share are more so truisms, but it's figuring out what's the current form of that truism, if that makes sense. But first and foremost, what I'll say is that every company, no matter what it is, has their own culture, or you could even say like a rule book, rules to the game of how we interview, what's our process, what do we look for. The standard example is most companies have a phone screen with the recruiter, interview with the first line manager,
like a behavioral interview. Tell me about a time.
So standard playbook, right? But then there's the standard playbook, and then there's like the subtleties of like, what are they really looking for? Like, we're looking for this thing, so how do you demonstrate that, right? So every single company has some kind of rules of the game. And simply, I just looked at my network. I didn't have a lot of Googler friends at the time, so I just started reaching out to people I didn't even know on LinkedIn, and I just wrote a heartfelt message, right, of like, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to get to, here's where I'm hoping you can help me. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help a complete stranger out.
Let's pause on this.
Sure.
Heartfelt message, right? Something I encourage people to do is to be a networking ninja. Shameless plug, I got my course, Tech Sales Accelerator, and that's a part of the course. You had to drop it.
By the way, I took a look at that. Really good concept. Really great concept.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so I was even talking with someone that is a part in our office hours. Yesterday, we have office hours every week on Friday about feedback on their networking messages, and because we understand, like, if you want to get,
I might need to steal that idea. I never thought about having office hours.
It's huge,
that's
dude.
a great
and so
idea.
you can coach more people, and also the people who are in the office hours can learn from the coaching you're providing someone. So yes,
thank you for that great idea.
We'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
And so the point is, we understand networking is absolutely foundational in a critically, random word, in a very competitive market. But the key is, how do you do it effectively? So that's the context. To walk us through one more time, like, what does the framework of the heartfelt message look like?
I think it's a mixture of being able to be vulnerable. And I think that's probably, we kind of mentioned earlier how gratitude, if you can't find ways to feel grateful, it's going to nip you in the butt somehow. I think vulnerability is another thing where if you can't muster courage, and I say courage because I do think, like Brené Brown says, vulnerability takes courage. But if you can't muster the courage to be vulnerable, then you're going to have a very short ceiling of where you go, because that's going to hold you back big time. So I think vulnerability is a big one, right? Of just being upfront of, like, where I need help from. And I really truly think that if you just are sincere about that, a lot of people want to help because it feels good to be able to help someone. So that's the first one. But then I think the second one is still having that value mindset of like, how can I still try to add value to your life? And value can be anything, right? So in that context, it could be humor. It could be even if you write a heartfelt message and it makes someone feel something, right? Because they're going through their day-to-day and like they're like hustling and bustling. And if they read a nice LinkedIn message and it gives them a nice like, oh, that's sweet type of moment, that's value in that context.
Yes.
So, just having that mindset of like, how can I still add value to this and not kind of be a leech in this situation? So vulnerability and adding value, I'd say, are the cornerstones.
Yeah, and when you mention adding value, you're right on. And I think of acknowledgement. Like Alex, I noticed I saw your post and I really loved what you said about and like get specific, or like I'm honestly so impressed with your journey in tech sales at all the top companies like this, and this, and you're an example of where I want to be. And that's just what's coming up for me, but some type of acknowledgement. My buddy Jeff at Oracle, he wrote a book. Imagine it's like you buy his book and say like, I loved page 10, or you don't even have to, but I mean, that's what I would do. That's taken another level, but just it shows some real effort and thoughtfulness, but even acknowledging the book.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying though, like the truism and the principle is giving abundantly and generously, and even if that's just a feeling,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and asking for help.
Yeah.
And
I'll share one. Now I'm really giving a lot of my tricks away, and I'm scared I'm going to share this, and now everyone's going to do it. But also, never underestimate the power of a handwritten letter. It's so simple, but I have literally had hiring. So one thing I used to always do after an interview is I would write them a handwritten thank you letter. I'd have some of it filled out right after interview. I might be like, hey, can I go use your restroom? I would go into the bathroom and literally finish, because you want to take moments from the interview.
So you were now in that case, you weren't virtual, you were in the office. So you were able to do that. Yeah.
Or if it was virtual, I would ask the recruiter like, hey, I want to send them something. 9 times out of 10 in today's day and age, they're probably not going to give you the address, but then write there's always steps. But anyways, I have literally had hiring managers tell me, we extended this offer because of that thank you letter that you gave. Because it's that one extra thing that really separates you from the rest of the crowd. But whether it's an interview or these people that help me prep for these interviews, I would write them all handwritten thank yous. And I think that that's a form of value that, you're really just taking a moment and giving them that human connection. And it's like, yeah, that's appreciative. So
in the most competitive of markets and job hunts, if you can do something above and beyond, it really differentiates you. And particularly something that comes from the heart is very thoughtful, very human, very personal. So that is an unbelievable hack for anyone out there trying to get and this we're talking when you're trying to get into the greatest companies in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So anything else you'd add on your journey, and was there anything that you did in particular in the interview process, or I wanted to round that out, related to getting in the interview process, and then just hit on your experience at Google.
Yeah.
But
so I'll tell you the things that I found out about Google's specific playbook that I leveraged. Now, again, I don't know if that playbook has changed, but these examples will simply give you an idea of oh, this is what he means about rules of the game. But for one example, in my due diligence, I found out that recruiters actually have, at the time, a decent amount of influence on whether you move forward or not. And oftentimes, if maybe someone's on the fence, that recruiter can, give a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
And that little bit of pressure, when again it's neck and neck, can put the favor in your odds.
Yeah.
So something as simple as that, helped me to really prioritize, I need to befriend the recruiter, give that value.
Yeah.
And so that's one example.
That, hey, I got to stop you. That's exactly what I did with Jen at Google Cloud. And I hit a hiring freeze and there was a delay, but had built such a good relationship. I even bought her Blue Bottle coffee, which I don't know if that's like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But I gave it as a gift.
It'll be our little secret.
And
no one has to know.
well, now it's on YouTube. But anyways, hey, it's 3 years or, over there, 3 good years. And now we're off to other places. So it's all good. But anyways, yeah, she vouched for me when we hit the hiring freeze and like had my back and even helped me get a signing bonus that I wanted because I built such a personal relationship with her. So I just backing up exactly like you're so right.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I love that.
So that's I think not just at Google Cloud though, but at any company that's important to turn your recruiter, like build a relationship and turn them into your biggest champion that could separate you from other competitors in the process.
You would think, but for whatever reason, it's not as assumed as common sense as, because I would share that experience with a few people and, they'll be like, oh, I never thought about it. That's a great idea. Or like, I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to a recruiter and they'll be like, yeah, I'm working with this one candidate and he's just an asshole. He's just like, bossing around and stuff. And I'm thinking like, does this guy not know that he should maybe not play that angle?
Yeah. So if anything, that's such a golden nugget. And one of my buddies that I know from my Oracle days, he's also a mentor. He's at AWS covering one global account, the biggest company in the world for their specific industry. And his whole job, he goes out to London and different countries in the US, traveling, meeting with them and growing the relationship between that company and AWS. So he told me he just like keeps a list of all the admins with the different executives and treats them like gold, and they help him get meetings and make sure the right people show up. And so, it kind of it's a similar parallel, right? When you're selling at the highest levels, you want to don't underestimate the power of an admin. Don't underestimate the power of a recruiter. Anyways, so any other truisms that you discovered in addition to the recruiter aspect?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one, right, was finding out that Google specifically had a question bank. Realizing that like when I found that out during my due diligence, I was like, oh, this is gold. So I didn't get the question bank, but you can find snippets online on Reddit, things like that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So and that's not publicly available knowledge, but that's information I gathered through just due diligence of reaching out to random people and doing research.
Yeah.
And so when I found that out, I then just scoured the internet, just talking to anyone I could that worked at Google. Any info I could get of like sample questions, things like that, I just started to gather it. And before I knew it, I had like a question bank of like 100 possible questions. And I just went through the process of, I bucketed them into like, well, what are they really trying to ask with this question? And I would bucket them and I would just think of a response for every single one. I almost had a story for like every single bucket. I had the data points to back it up because, a company like Google, and that's the other thing I learned in that research, right, was that they love stories. They love hearing data when you share a story. And also I found in my research that they're always going to throw you one or two curveballs with every answer you gave. So I anticipated all of that and I just rehearsed it, just like that Kobe analogy. And when the interview comes, you put all that aside and you just be present. Yeah.
What golden nuggets on what it takes to get into Google and Google Cloud in particular. And I'm sure that all is still very valid, regardless of how long it's been since you were there. And it actually, when did you leave Google to go to Mongo? How many years ago was that? Was that like... That was a year ago?
Maybe 2 years ago at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we'll finish up with Mongo, but we're not done with Google, of course, right? I want to hear about your experience. Like, what did you love about Google? Like, what made it special? And how did you grow from that experience?
Yeah, so Google was an interesting experience because I was at Google for about 5 years. One of those years was as a individual contributor, as a seller.
Okay.
And then that's when I transitioned over to the partnership side. So
I have to interrupt for the audience. They might not understand what the partnership transition looks like and what that role entails. So can you distinguish like the closer, seller, individual contributor role to versus like a partnership role?
Yeah, so I'll do my best. So basically, every company is going to have a partner ecosystem. That ecosystem could comprise of services partners.
Like where I'm at today.
Exactly, Bespin. Shout out to Sunny.
Yeah, Sunny.
It could be also comprised of resellers, so there's always going to be a partner ecosystem.
SaaS partners. That
SaaS
like in
partners.
the case of a cloud provider where the SaaS company can run on the
Yep.
infrastructure of Google Cloud.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
And so my role was to basically work with a specific set of partners and work with them to be a bridge with their sales team and our sales team, and basically just try to make some money together.
And that's how we met, baby.
And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And it's just like any other sales role where you have a quota and you just have to work towards it. But now you're working at scale and you have to learn to not be so involved in every single deal and kind of just set things up and just, hope that,
That the sellers execute.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So there is a certain level of power you have to learn to let go of as well.
ooh, that's interesting because at this stage of my career, I think sometimes I struggle with letting go, even as it relates to the YouTube channel and the operations. And, I have editors who support me, and I have an editor who will help, put this together afterwards, right? And that's an example of letting go, delegating. But for people who are transitioning into more of a leadership role or a role where you need to let go, do you have any guidance, like from a mindset perspective, on how to let go? You could say, oh, you just do it, but I just wanted to throw that up to you,
Yeah.
see what you think.
So I think it's going to be one of those situations where there isn't a blanket answer, because I think it might be a different case for different people. But if this is something that you want to delve into, I think there's two truisms that you could probably ask yourself. The first one is just asking the question of, like, do I even want to change this? Because if you don't have that urge to even want to change this behavior or this mindset, then it's going to be a failed attempt. So once you've decided, okay, maybe this inability to delegate or to not delegate or let things go is impacting me, and you've made the decision to want to change it, that's step one. Step
And I
two,
describe it, by the way, as like giving up control in a way. Yeah, not having to have your hands in everything. Yeah. Step two.
And then step two, I would say, is just ask yourself, where does the need to not want to let go come from? I think 9 times out of 10, myself included, it comes from trust. It either comes from trust or fear. And you could almost argue that those are they're synonymous, or uncles or relatives in that same situation. But I think you just need to ask yourself, like, what is preventing me from wanting to let go? And I think if you look into that and really ask why a bunch of times and get to the root of it, and you get to that reason, then I think that's a great starting point.
Really great. And I love the truisms that you offered up there.
Yeah.
I brought it up intentionally. I've heard the CEO of Lululemon was struggling with letting go, and once he distinguished that was holding back his business, the business skyrocketed. And we're all aware of Lululemon. And he's actually gone through a seminar, landmark, that I've gone through, that a lot Lululemon employees for a time were actually, that was a part of their training, was going through that seminar. So I just remember, like, and for those in the audience that are planning to be CEOs, that especially as you grow in your career, you need to learn to let go of control and delegate and empower others. So I have wanted to wrap up Google, but any other thoughts? I just wanted to give you the opportunity to springboard off if you wanted to.
About Google in general?
Yeah. So how about this? Let's finish up what you loved about Google, and then we'll hit on Mongo quick. I mean, I can't help it, man. I'm a curious guy, and these are all such great companies. So I feel like the audience wants to know. So maybe it sounds like you had different types of roles. You transitioned into partnerships, which you described very well, the distinction between a partnerships role and a sales role. Tell us more just about your experience and what you enjoyed about Google and what you learned.
Well, Google is really interesting because it's the only company I've ever worked for where I was in a sales org that most of the leadership that I saw at Google were like consultants or had consulting backgrounds.
Yeah.
So you basically had a sales org led by a consultant inside of a inherently engineering-based company. So the sales org and the sales culture was unlike any other sales culture I'd been a part of. You probably are aware of this, but Google really emphasizes the motto of 10x. How can you do something that has a 10x impact? And so whether that was being a seller or working on the partnership side, they really wanted you to constantly find ways to do something at scale, whether it's setting up programs or systems or processes to just automate or quickly scale. So that was a really interesting thing. And the transition from sales to partnerships made me realize how much tunnel vision a seller has. You know, they're just focused on their deal typically, and it's very hard for them to see the bigger picture from a business standpoint. Not even from their customer standpoint, but from the company that they work for. And so moving into that role, you finally start to really develop your business acumen and really see the business from a very holistic standpoint. And that was a really valuable lesson that I probably still draw on currently as I run my coaching business.
So let's talk Mongo. And I think one of the main takeaways we had talked about before was that they were able to get true alignment of a whole organization around campaigns and things. So I really do want to shift towards like tying a bow on your sales career and the core lessons learned, and then talking about you taking the leap in what you're doing now sooner than later. So just tell us real quick, I'd like maybe that insight on what you learned from Mongo.
Yeah, I mean, you summarized it perfectly, right? Like Mongo was probably one of the smallest companies I worked for, right? Because it was IBM and then Google. I guess they were about the same size as Rackspace,
and yet they're a big name.
They are a huge name, and they are definitely no Joe Schmo startup. So number one, what I will say is, especially for your listeners that maybe are just getting into their career, company size really changes culture and your experience on a day-to-day. So before you start maybe thinking about maybe sales isn't for me, maybe also ask that question of what's the ideal company size that I want to work for? Because they all have different pros and cons. And so it's trying to figure out which mixture of pros and cons fits me best. So that's just a little side tangent. But because it was way smaller, one thing I was really impressed with Mongo was their ability to make a decision from up top, and they made decisions quick. Like they were not a large company like IBM or Google, so they could make a decision and they would execute it and push it down through the ranks extremely quick. When I first joined MongoDB, it was at a time where they were basically revamping their entire sales playbook, the terminology, the sales stages, how sellers were comped, everything. And I think it took 2 months for them to create the training, push it out, get all their sellers trained up, and go to market. And I was in comparison, and when I say everyone, I mean the leaders were on board. You saw the leaders going through those classes and taking notes just like everyone else. The partnerships team, the marketing team, everyone was on board. And I was just looking at this and I'm like, man, a company like IBM or Google, this would probably take like, an entire 12 months, 6 to 12 months to push this out. So I was very impressed with how precise and how structured MongoDB was with pushing things out. And the other thing was like everyone was bought in. Everyone was drinking the Kool-Aid. Everyone was, behind a unified message. And I think that's what one of the great things of the CEO of Mongo does is he's a pretty strong leader in getting a unified vision. So
great insight on what being a great leader looks like, and the power of a company being able to pivot quickly and have everyone be bought in, and honestly drinking the Kool-Aid. So final question on this, I promise, is what was your role like and responsibilities at Mongo?
Yeah, so I was basically doing the exact same thing I was doing at Google, except on the other side now. So I was on the partnerships team at MongoDB. I was a director of strategic cloud pursuits, and my main partner that I worked with was Google Cloud.
Cool.
And so it was just that case where as you progress through your career, you start to accumulate certain things that you can just cash in on, whether it's relationships or just knowledge of how a company works. And in this instance, it was just a great fit because I had both at that time.
It was such a natural progression, but
Yeah.
then it led to the greatest step in your progression yet, taking the leap to go all in on you and your coaching. So I want to talk about that. But okay, I want to tie a bow on like all of like now that you look back on your whole career, we just went through it, which is an incredible career. What did you take away? Like, how do you think about that career? Maybe it was training ground for entrepreneurship, but I just want some final thoughts on how you reflect on your holistic tech career and as it relates to where you're at today.
So I think first and foremost, and given that this is a sales podcast, this might not be the best place to say it.
Speak from the heart
I'm just
and
going
be
to say
honest.
I think that when a lot of people get into sales, it's because for whatever reason, they just have a shit ton of ambition inside of them. And it's like this raw energy, and they need to put it somewhere. So
It's like when I said, I want to be great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, I think a lot of people just take this ambition and they need to put it somewhere. And the easiest place to put it is making a lot of money. And I share that because I think a lot of people get into sales with the mindset of, I want to be successful or I want to make a lot of money. And quite frankly, those are not very well thought out goals. And you're going to outgrow them pretty quickly. I know a lot of sellers that have been in sales for 10 plus years, and they're making a bunch of money, but I could probably count on one hand how many of them are happy or fulfilled. And they'll all say, right, like, this money doesn't mean shit to me anymore. I'm just like pretty unhappy. And so I don't say that to discourage your audience, because sales is absolutely a great stomping ground to learn a skill set that you can go anywhere in the world and do whatever you want, and also create a financial buffer so that you can afford to do something bigger. But I think that's the biggest takeaway, right?
And build relationships,
You've done. Yeah, that's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the biggest takeaway in my experience was, I really hope that your audience can understand that sales, biased opinion, but shouldn't be the end goal.
Yeah.
This should be a stepping stone towards something greater, something where you can really live an extraordinary life and make a huge impact and give a lot of value to the world. And so, just don't have that tunnel vision of, I need to make more money, I need to climb that corporate ladder. This is just a stepping stone to something better.
So well put. It's a stepping stone to our highest level of impact, contribution, and meaning.
Yeah.
So walk us through as you got to the edge of the cliff. I'm just choosing that metaphor because it comes to me in this moment, and got ready to jump and spread your wings. Like, what did you feel? And this was at Mongo, right? Like, 'cause that was your last company. Like, what led you to really leap?
A lot of pain, a lot of burnout. And
Okay.
so what I mean by this is, I got into partnerships because the money was great in sales, but I was getting pretty burnt out. And so it got to the point where I got into sales or into partnerships thinking, maybe salvation is around the corner. Maybe the next job is going to make me fulfilled. Maybe the next company is going to make me fulfilled. And that just tended to be the pattern of my life, where like I would get this new shiny object, it would wear out, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need this new shiny object. And so in parallel to that, and I'm going to touch on something that probably a lot of salespeople can relate to, but so when I was at Google, I started to go to therapy. I went to therapy originally for completely separate reasons, but it brought me on this journey that I didn't really expect. But one of the main things I learned in therapy was the concept of learning to not judge emotions as good or bad, but simply that they are what they are. And when you start to change that viewpoint on certain bad emotions like sadness, burnout, unhappiness, whatever it is, it allows you to not run from it as much. And you're willing to sit with it and develop a relationship with these emotions. And through this process, what I started to realize is that, wow, I haven't been feeling these things. And one of the things that's been preventing me from feeling these things were a lot of vices. You'll see that a lot of salespeople use a lot of vices, whether it's alcohol, drugs, materialism.
I knew multiple alcoholics at Google Cloud and that are top sellers, and I had to give up drinking myself. So
yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And it's not even the vices that you would think, because those are the vices. But anything can be healthy and anything can be a vice, meaning materialism, prestige, even the gym at some points can be an escape.
My ice baths, I got to be careful.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But so I got to a point where I started to axe out a lot of these vices in my life, because it made me realize that, these negative emotions that I'm feeling are serving a purpose. It's trying to tell me that I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but I couldn't feel that because I kept running away from that feeling and just kept doing these vices to keep me preoccupied. So, all these things started to stitch together where I went through this journey in my life where I axed out all the vices. It allowed me to get in touch with how I was really feeling. And it made me realize how unhappy I was with where I was. And so that was kind of the starting point of realizing, like, I need to make this change soon.
So talk about the leap and the roller coaster ride of going all in. Like, how have you handled it?
It's been definitely a roller coaster. But honestly, there's that saying of like, you never think something's going to be as good as when you get it. I'm telling you, like, this isn't for everyone. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but I would wager that there is a large percentage of your audience right now that if I said that Kevin O'Leary quote, right, of a paycheck is a drug that a corporation gives you to make you forget about your dreams. I would argue that that's going to resonate with a good portion of your audience. And I think that was really the starting point, right, of you just realize that you gotta just have trust and faith in yourself and just make that move eventually. And I think everyone hits a tipping point where something's kind of underneath the surface and something kind of tips it over. And what's interesting was Mongo was actually that tipping point, but not for the reason you would think. Mongo was that point where, going back to that list I made of like my goals and my 10-year thing, Mongo was that final thing on my checklist where I hit, after 12 years, it was a 10-year journey, but it was a 10-year goal list, but it took me 12 years. When I went to Mongo and I finally got that title of being a director, that was the last thing literally on my list.
Yeah.
So at Mongo, I had an awesome boss. She was a great mentor. I learned so much from her. The company itself was really strong, heading in the right direction. The stock was doing well. I loved my job because I had all this impact. And I couldn't think of a single excuse on why I shouldn't enjoy it. And the fact that I was the most unhappy I'd ever been, I was like, wow, there's no more room to run. I have to just face the fact that this isn't for me anymore. I've outlived this career. And that was my tipping point. And so luckily, in the background, I was also kind of preparing financially. I've always been very stoic, right, with being smart with my finances. So I had, a good financial buffer to lean on.
There you go. That's a good nugget right there, right? Because some people might recklessly jump in, and it's cool, like, kudos to you for following your passion and everything, but not thinking through having a financial buffer. Mm-hmm. And that is just very sound, practical advice.
Yeah, to the point where this is around the lockdown. I purposely went full nomadic mode when we were working from home. So I was basically living in my car, just being a nomad. I purposely did that to drastically lower my standard of living and reset, because I had those golden handcuffs, and I was really, my expenses and my standard of living was really high.
Yeah.
And I knew, I was like, something's coming where like this tipping point's coming. So I knew I had to reset. And so that was just, another example of me just trying to deliberately get ready for the next
Interesting.
step.
Yeah, because that resonates with me. I'm thinking through, maybe intentionally lowering my standard of living to build more financial buffer. Because I was balling out downtown in a sky rise, and then I made a choice to come to where I'm at today. That's still a really nice community, but it's not as expensive. And I think that was a growth moment for me to realize, let me live under my means. And so I don't know, at least for me, that's really resonating, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for anyone out there trying to prepare to go all in, be willing to humble yourself and to free up the opportunity to build some cash runway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So before we talk about your heart behind this, like how you see coaching and what you do, like I want to hear from the heart, like what you're all about. Is there anything you'd add on like the challenging aspect? Like, but you did create a financial buffer. So I think it like, has it been all roses, or have there been like some emotionally challenging aspects of going all in now in the Wild West?
Yeah, no, there are definitely a lot of emotional roller coasters. I think the first 2 months was like the honeymoon phase where I was like, I did it. Like, it's all going to be, okay from here. And then you kind of just go, and then you hit your first like really sharp downturn. But again, trust in myself has been my mantra this entire time. Anytime I start freaking out or thinking like, well, this is it, like, it's all gonna fail from here, I just keep repeating that word to myself, just trust. And I think trust, just like trust in a relationship, you can't just wish trust into your life. Trust comes from earning it, right? Just like, if we have this relationship and you trust me, it's because I've earned it, and we've had to build something, and we've had to put time into it. And I started to get to the point where I was like, why am I freaking out? Like I've persevered through so much more. And then you start reminding yourself of all the reference experiences that you can pull from. And so it made me realize, I was like, man, these moments where I'm freaking out, it's just because I'm used to freaking out. But when you start realizing it's just an emotion, and you just go back to that trust, it's very empowering, and it's almost like you just learn to let go of that fear. But needless to say, there are still absolutely ups and downs of trying to start a business and make it work, but you're going to eat shit, whether you're working for yourself or you're working for whether you're working for someone or for yourself. And the shit I have to eat as a business owner tastes so much better than the shit you have to eat when it's, working for someone else. So it's way more satisfying and fulfilling to work through these problems when it's your own thing.
Share your heart with us. Tell us about what you do now. It's the moment has arrived.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, giving that opportunity. So I don't think this is the thing for everyone, but I think a lot of times an individual's purpose in life stems from the journey that they've been on. And you've heard me share a little bit, right, about how I got into tech sales almost because I had this chip on my shoulder of, I need to prove to the world that I have all this worth, and I want to be successful. And I went on that journey. You get what you want, and you're like, wow, this isn't what I wanted. What's going on? And so that journey has really motivated me to want to help others that might be going on that same journey, of people that are super successful on paper, super ambitious, super successful, but for whatever reason, the more success they get, they're like, I feel like I'm just becoming more unhappy. And because I've been through that journey, I feel like I'm really the right person to also help coach people through that process. So right now, I typically work with tech professionals, whether it's executives, first-line managers, or seasoned sellers that on paper are super successful, but for whatever reason, when it's Sunday night and they know Monday is around the corner, they feel dread. Those are the people that I work with typically.
What is it about coaching people that brings you joy? Can you put your finger on it?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if it's a universal thing or if it's something that I'm just predisposed to, but it's just helping someone. And it's not only helping someone, but when you see a client right before your eyes have a powerful breakthrough and you can see that they just released 20 years worth of pent up frustration, or they just let go of something that they've been holding on to for like 20 years, and you can literally see the transformation happen right in front of you. It's like one of the most rewarding feelings ever. And also knowing that what you're spreading out into the world, once you experience that, there's no way you're not going to want to also pay that forward. And so I also see it as like, this is truly a sustainable way to make the world a better place. Spread light. And once other people experience that light, like you're going to want to help others, you know?
And you open up a whole new path, a whole new realm of possibility when you do help that person let go of the baggage, create a breakthrough. And I remember PSI seminars, another seminar that I've done in addition to Landmark, said basically something like world peace, one mind at a time. And so in a way, I mean, you're contributing to world peace, man. Like, so you are playing your part in contributing to that broader world peace, because we're trying to approach world peace. Obviously, something we strive towards. It might the cynics might say that's not possible. We'll never get there, but it's just worth even pursuing. And it really is. I think the most powerful way to get there is one person at a time, and people like you that have a gift to coach and encourage and cause breakthroughs, to be out there giving your gift. So I'm so grateful that you're out there sharing that gift with folks like me. We had a great coaching session.
We did.
And I can share, what I loved about it, some of the benefits of my experience. However, before we get into it, I want to level set for the audience who might not be familiar with what coaching is. What is coaching? How is it different than like a consultant or a therapist?
Great question.
Tell us.
Okay, so I would wager and argue that most people don't actually know what coaching really is. I think when people think about coaching, they think that it's advice giving. And so there's some common distinctions between coaching, therapy, consultants, and mentors. So these are generalizations, so bear with me, but a therapist is typically going to work more so on meeting you where you're at and figuring out the past. They're going to help with things that coaches really aren't equipped to even deal with, such as like mental health issues, trauma, things of that sort. So they're going really, really deep into an individual's past and their psyche. That's kind of how I look at it, at least. A consultant is going to be someone that, you bring a business problem or a business statement to them, and they're going to use research and their past experience, and they're going to actually give you a recommendation of like, hey, here's what I think your company should do. A mentor is going to be someone that maybe is 5, 10, 20 years ahead of where you want to be, but you want to get to that point. And so they're going to just give you advice and try to help with shortening that learning curve, right? Of like, hey, I was in a similar situation. Maybe here's something you should consider when you're, doing your podcast or something.
And they check and encourage. And what's funny is my mentor checked in on me today, the CEO of the Austin Tech Council and a professional speaker of 20 years, right? So he's literally doing, I want to be a keynote speaker. He's done keynotes. He's made, for 20 years, like a full-time living doing it. And we're talking about, it's time to write your keynote, by the way, which I'm excited about. But that's so funny you bring up mentors, because that's an example today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yet now I'm here with my coach. So, what do we say about coach? How does coach interplay?
So a coach is going to be really the other side of the coin to a therapist, where we meet you where you're at and we figure out where you want to go. And step one is figuring out where you want to go. Step two is figuring out what's getting in the way, whether it's your mindset. It might be external things like, physical things like proximity, environment, finances. We help pull out of you the things you can't see. And we also give accountability. We create strategic plans to actually move the needle forward. So it's a mixture of like inner wooey stuff with outer concrete, tangible things to push the needle forward. There's a great saying by one of my favorite, he's like the coaches for coaches. His name is Rich Liffin. And, he always says that what got you here won't get you there. Meaning the very things that got you to this exact point of success.
Yeah, including your strengths.
Right? So, I'll finish the statement first and then I'll give an example. The very things that got you to this point are actually going to be your biggest enemies to getting to that next point, really leveling up. Because everyone is equipped with a certain tool chest, and that has a ceiling. It plateaus. And it's really realizing that, like, hey, if you really want to get to this next point in your life, not like a 1 or 2 jump, I mean like a 50-point jump, you're going to have to unlearn and let go of a lot of mindsets. And the thing that sucks is that it's hard to see that yourself. That's why I work with my own coach, because even though I'm a coach, I can't coach myself because I can't see my own blind spots. It's literally in the word, blind spots, right? And so a very common example I see of this with my clients is this need to always be busy, this need to always feel like they're doing something.
I experienced that.
Yeah. And people have it for different reasons, but that's a perfect example, right, of that very thing probably helped them get to a really successful point. But that constant need to like really feel like they need to always be doing something might be the thing that they actually have to let go of to truly live this amazing life. And that's just a broad generalization, but you could see, right, how that saying of what got you here won't get you there really applies to what coaches do with people.
Yeah, and it's funny when we're busy, locked away, it might seem good, you're building towards your vision, but you might miss the opportunity that you would have had if you went out and socialized and met a connection that could have been your future partner, a life-changing friend, or even another business opportunity, but you were locked away. And I think back to the last weekend, honestly, I said no to 3 social opportunities on Saturday because I was grinding, and I grind on the weekends, and you're making me do a little, not making, but welcoming me and opening up the opportunity for self-reflection on, the need to, do I really need to be busy all the time? And what if I'm actually holding myself back? So I wanted to wrap up sharing a little bit of my experience with your coaching, which has been really impactful, getting any of your final thoughts and then having a call to action. So in our first session over Zoom, I noticed off the bat, you created a very safe space for me to really share who I am and to share fully without judgment. You even acknowledged, hey, I might like look to the side at times. It's because I'm taking notes or following a framework. You set a really good context for me to feel comfortable and to really be my full self. And you allowed me to, communicate the way that is natural for me, which honestly is talking all over the place. But then you guided me to like go down specific areas of focus or lines of thought and feel welcome to, if you have a better phraseology for what I'm describing, feel welcome to chime in, to get to the root of like an issue or to lead to like some type of breakthrough. So I love that I was able to speak all over the place, but you really took control of the conversation and were able to guide me in a non-pushy way.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to riff off over? I've got a couple other positives from the experience, but anything you want to riff on with that?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I'm very impressed with how self-aware you were with what was going on. So I just want to give you kudos on that. But no, you did a great job synthesizing or summarizing that. I think it's important to understand about coaching is that coaches don't know what's best for you. Again, we're not here to give you advice. What we are here to do is we are here to figure out what is your intuition telling you that you really should be doing. But sometimes your intuition can be blocked, either because you haven't listened to it in a while, so that muscle isn't really strong. Sometimes your culture or your traumas or your environment have brainwashed you to think something else. But at the core of it, it's that your intuition is telling you what you really need to do. And what a coach is really doing is they're listening very intently they're asking, very strategic, open-ended, and probing questions to really draw that out of you, but not only draw it out of you, but help you to reach your own conclusions. And that's a huge difference of why coaching works versus just advice giving. Because if I give you the playbook of what you need to do right now, moving forward to get 1 million subscribers, for whatever reason, it's not going to hit the same way as if I help you hit that realization yourself. And when you hit that realization yourself, it's like this whole body shift where you just get it. Whatever was in your way is out of your way, and you just move forward. So it's a very powerful framework and a system.
So there was one other key thing I wanted to hit on in terms of my experience and the benefits of working with you and with a coach in general, is there was a moment where you stopped me and I was sharing my experience and thinking on a specific area. We're actually talking about dating life, right? So we're not just talking business, we're talking about that. And you said, Chris, did you notice how your demeanor and body language, or at least what you could see within the context of the Zoom, and your tone changed? And I didn't. You observed something that I would have never freaking known, a blind spot maybe. And it led to a breakthrough that actually then translated to actionable takeaways that I was able to implement, and then you provided accountability, which were, again, benefits of coaching. You followed up a week or two later and kept me accountable to what I learned I needed and then some of the actions I needed to take. But I wanted to finish up hitting on that piece. Like, you observed something that I would have never been aware of, and you brought it to my attention.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
Yeah. And again, I'm glad that you're able to experience it firsthand, right? Because until you've experienced it, it's hard to really grasp how powerful coaching can really be.
Yeah. So, dude, speaking of powerful, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
I've been having a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, like so much value packed into this conversation on, yes, how to break into tech sales at the top companies in the world, what it's like, how to be, successful, but most importantly, how to think about living a life of fulfillment and joy, and to have faith to pursue our actual dreams and go all in on ourselves. The big takeaway that is so in alignment, I mean, it's not the only big takeaway, but one of them, in alignment with my vision for this channel on Tech Sales Accelerator, is tech sales is training ground for entrepreneurship, for pursuing your dreams. It's a launch pad for then eventually going all in on you, and it's not the permanent end or solution.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's finish up with some calls to action, right? You've got a newsletter. I linked it in the description of this video. And what else are we going to encourage the audience to check out? Because I want to welcome them to book time with you, but is there anything else you would add in terms of like your core calls to action?
Yeah, I would say, and number one, thank you for that, again, that opportunity. I think the 3 would be, number one, you're going to link my newsletter in the description. If this conversation has resonated with whoever, I highly recommend that they subscribe and follow my newsletter, because that's where I really give most of my best tips, insights, just lessons learned, things of that sort. So that's going to be step number 1. Step number 2 is I highly encourage your audience to take a look at my origins video, because, again, classic sales, we're qualifying, always be qualifying. But, that origins video is really my true life experience just put out on the table. And so if that really resonates with your audience, then that's a very good sign that we will work really well together.
And that's on YouTube, right?
And that's on YouTube.
And I'll have it linked in the description.
Perfect. Yeah. And so I highly recommend your audience look at that video if this conversation has intrigued them, and see if it resonates with them. And, I'm currently doing this thing. It's kind of a side gratitude passion project where I just feel like I'm living such a truly blessed life right now. And as we've been talking about throughout this whole session or this whole conversation, there are so many things that could have gone wrong or, whatever. And I'm just here at this moment, truly blessed. And I reflect on this a lot, and it makes me want to really give back to the world. So at the beginning of this year, I started a campaign where I'm going to gift to the world 100 free complimentary coaching sessions. And these aren't like, okay, let me just squeeze this in and, get as many as in. Like each of these sessions are going really, really deep, like almost 2 to 3 hours if we have to. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about. It's my way of giving back. And so as my gift to you and your audience, if they would like to actually experience the power of coaching, that offer's on the table. I will give one caveat, though, that before that happens, I want your audience to take a look at one of my Wheel of Life workbooks. So it's a very simple exercise where all you do is you go in, it asks you a few questions about like different pillars of your life, and you simply rank how satisfied you are. And if you do this exercise, then it's going to give you a quick snapshot of what does my life look like? Where am I imbalanced? And it's going to help you realize like maybe these are the areas that I'm unhappy with. If they are willing to go through that workbook and put in time and effort and fill that out, then I will be more than happy to reciprocate and gift a complimentary coaching session. So those would be the 3 call to actions. Subscribe to my newsletter, check out my Origins video, and if you want a coaching session, then let's do it.
Well, there you have it. Christmas came early, guys. A unique opportunity to work with Alex, who has crushed it in tech sales, and maybe that's important to you at this stage, but can open up new possibilities for you in the future. And he's the real deal. We worked in a business context together. When you were at Google Cloud, I was on the partner side and still am at Bespin, but it's bloomed into a beautiful friendship. And I just remember our first dinner that started in a business context where we connected deeply and realized we had such similar hearts and visions and similar impacts we wanted to make. So thank you for being here. Thank you to the audience for investing in yourself and your self-development and for your time and attention.
Amen.
And make sure to follow up on these calls to action. It's a great opportunity. And keep me posted on who you want to see on the podcast and what you want to hear about on this channel. I want to, bring as much value as possible to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.